me. There we go. So I was invited to come and speak as a result of a department heads meeting where Annie sent me to ask the other departments if they already have naloxone available to their staff, and if they don't, if they're interested in having the medication available. So first of all, in case we aren't aware, naloxone is just the generic name for NARCAN nasal spray, which is a medication that reverses opioid overdoses. It only reverses opioid overdoses, no other drug. However, if you give it to somebody and they are not overdosing on opioids, it will not hurt them. I have it right here. I could give it to myself right now in front of you. Nothing bad would happen to me. I could keep having this presentation. There are no side effects from the medication itself. This is an over-the-counter drug, and anyone can use it if you can move your fingers. I have a little demonstration device that I put in front of you. It's a nasal spray. You put it up to somebody's nose, you press a plunger, the medication is deployed into their nose, and the instructions on how to use it are right on the box. It's pretty simple to use a nasal spray. Now, there's been a lot of conversation in the past few years about why we should have naloxone in public spaces, because EMS do have this medication available to them. And with the proliferation of fentanyl and lacing in the illicit drug supply, as well as people who take prescription opioids, there's more people than ever that are susceptible to opioid overdoses, and we have public buildings here. People from all walks of life come into our spaces, and so when someone is experiencing a fentanyl overdose, for example, minutes really do matter. Yes, even downtown, it takes very little time for EMS to arrive. However, by the time they arrive, it may be too late because of the potency of fentanyl. And so thus, public health folks have really pushed to have this available everywhere so that we can respond in a timely manner and save lives. So why should we have it in county spaces specifically? Well, first, overdose can happen anywhere. When talking to other department heads, we've heard from Mary Wells about folks coming into the treasurer's office that are clearly very intoxicated, concerningly so. We talked to Helen about people who are getting high in the health department bathroom. We know that's happening, concerning behavior to have in a public space. And even at River Place, within about a month ago or so, we had an opioid overdose occur in the bathroom close to our office space. And someone from Aging Resources had naloxone available and used it and was able to reverse that opioid overdose before EMS arrived. So it's already happening on county property. And we have the ability to respond quickly, swiftly, and with low risk to our county employees, and we can save lives. Now, after the department head meeting, there were 7 department heads that reached out to either Helen, Annie, or myself directly, asking if their staff could be trained or have it available. And we already have specialized staff in the county that have it. We have our CYFS detention officers, we have the rangers, as well as the sheriff's office that already have this medication available. And I have a photo of an AED machine up here because this is just a good example of why we could have this in public spaces. So AED machines. Not everyone is trained on how to use it. I would imagine that most county employees aren't formally trained on how to use an AED machine, but the instructions are right there on the machine, and they talk to you, and naloxone is the same, that the instructions are right on the box. It's there in case of an emergency, just like an AED machine. And we wouldn't dream of not having AED machines available for folks to use in the case of an emergency. And so other public spaces have taken the initiative to have it right there with it. Doesn't mean that we have to do that, just an example. I know that Indianola School District decided that they wanted to have their naloxone in these boxes, and this is just another school system that decided to go that route. Other reasons that we should have it as a county available for employees to use. This is in alignment with other harm reduction work Polk County has been doing. The health department has the lock boxes, as you're probably aware, that have safer use supplies. And naloxone seems to be the least stigmatized harm reduction technique because we are saving people's lives. It's widely accepted, or becoming more accepted, I should say, as something that everyone should have available to them, and goes right along with what we're doing for the public. We also have harm reduction grants that are actually due today for opioid settlement funds. So this is in alignment with how we're headed as a county in recognizing that this is important work. And the last reason is that we have the opportunity to be leaders in this space. There has been some movement on a city level to get library employees to have this available and be able to use it. The Des Moines Police have recently started carrying it and using it within the last year. However, there are a lot of organizations in Des Moines that really should have this on premise and don't, because they feel that the EMS should be able to take care of this problem. But as I mentioned, in places like shelters, for example, minutes do matter, and folks have passed away because there was no naloxone on site that was available to use. So if we can set an example for within Polk County, we also can set an example across the state for other local governments that look to us for policy examples. Now, just an idea of what a naloxone policy could include. This would include general guidelines for employees who decide to administer naloxone. I am not advocating that this is a requirement of county employees, simply that there are general guidelines that anyone could follow if they choose to do so. And there would be an expectation that staff are trained by professional trainers, which I'll talk about here in a second, and that they still call 911 in event of an emergency. Just like the AED, you either designate somebody to call 911 or you do it yourself. There's also a couple provisions because this is a medication. It needs to be stored in the proper way to maintain the integrity of it so it works as it's supposed to. So it has to be in a temperature-controlled area, and we also want it to be easily accessible where everyone knows it is and can get to it quickly. And there were some folks that reached out that were interested in having it actually be on the person, like the security guards to actually carry it, just like a police officer would on their belt. And then, for example, county attorneys who are mobile be able to have a box assigned to them that they could take with them wherever they go if they choose to do so. And then the last piece that would be beneficial to include would be something about supply monitoring. So having somebody that if there was an administration, the employee would report to them that it was used, and then they would report that to HHS as required if we get the medication from them, which I'll talk about here in a second, and also to keep track of it if it expires. It has a 4-year shelf life, so luckily that's not a huge time commitment. You know, I always have to think about the costs associated with any policy change. First of all, we can get naloxone for free from Iowa Health and Human Services, both the initial order and any reorders that we have to do in the future. And the only requirements for that is that we report what happened with it when we used it, if it expired, if we administered it, and what the outcome of the administration was. It's the only thing we have to do. We're not even required to have a policy. And then we also would be able to get free, ongoing professional trainings and technical assistance from Employee and Family Resources. They are a contractor of HHS to provide these trainings, and they could be available both for departments as well as individuals that are interested in a lunch and learn type style or a virtual option. And all of that being said, overall this would require a small staff time commitment. Training for using naloxone takes 30 minutes tops, and then having a staff member that keeps track of the stock and does the administrative side after that initial training, coordination, and naloxone order would be pretty minimal. So we're here today to just ask if we can move forward with drafting the policy. Andrea has already looked into this, started looking into this in anticipation of any questions about this, and just getting the go-ahead to move forward because we have a lot of interested folks and really do have the ability to make a difference here. So I'll take any questions you might have.
When you say a lot of interest, what are we talking about, a lot of interest?
So there were 7 department heads that reached out, and for all of them, they were interested in having their entire staff trained, with the exception of maybe some of the less risky places within CYFS. But then for some folks, they wanted that one-on-one, making sure that everybody had a box of naloxone instead of just having it available for the staff to use and within the spaces in which they work.
Would you see that those boxes would be in the, out front or actually in the offices?
I could see it go either way. You could have it in a space where the public could access it as well, or you could just have it in behind a desk or in an office space available just for employees to use.
So, I haven't thought about it yet a lot, but I think it's probably a good idea. Liability-wise, Andrea's probably working on all of that, I would imagine. Perfect.
And I would think that as long as they have some proper training, it'd probably cover a lot of that reasonableness standard that they've got there. But that's the question is, do they get, what kind of training do they get? I have no problem looking at a policy and all that, but I'm to share Angela's concern a little bit about the liability piece of it. Some employee, tries to do the right thing and ends up getting sued. But we don't want that either. So I think a policy like that probably makes some sense.
Yeah, the training covers being able to identify the opioid overdose, using it, and then what happens when the person wakes up, instructs people to call 911, and sometimes there's a little bit of background about why we even need this medication in the first place, what opioids are, what fentanyl is. So it really could be anybody that walks into this training and is equipped with the knowledge they need to administer the medication.
What's the shelf life for it to?
4 years.
4 years.
And they might even extend it again. The FDA keeps extending the shelf life.
That's great.
Okay.
I had a question, just a little bit off topic, I guess, but not exactly. It has to do with the opioid settlement and all that. Annie, you sent out an email yesterday about state grants and all that. You want to pass those up. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that today? Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So in May, Governor Reynolds designated $17.5 million from American Rescue Act funds to different substance-related initiatives that she originally put in a bill to be funded by opioid settlement dollars. And since that bill was not passed, that money is coming from American Rescue Fund Acts and is going to be available to organizations both that are interested in expanding the infrastructure of inpatient treatment facilities and recovery community centers such as Full Circle or Rise Recovery that we already have here in Des Moines, and then a separate pot of money for recovery housing, both in general and then specifically for folks that have been human trafficked or have been in a domestic abuse situation. So both of those pots of money are for the entire state. However, the maximum awards are generous. So for the treatment facilities, they can request up to $3 million. Recovery centers can request up to $1 million. And for housing projects, they can request up to $2 million. So those would be available for our Polk County providers to apply for. We're encouraging them to do so. I sent it out to the folks that we work with regularly. And we originally planned in our Polk County opioid settlement strategic plan that we would allocate $1 million in fiscal year 25 to recovery housing related projects. But in light of what the state has decided to do, we find that it's going to be in our best interest to wait and see what providers are awarded funds in Polk County, if any, so that we can potentially fund a different project. There's opportunities for matching funds for the housing grant in particular, where we could potentially support a project that is awarded funds in that match. It's a 10% match. And hold off to see how that goes, and then we'll be rolling right into the next legislative session where hopefully opioid settlement bills will be passed. So, it's understandable that we have a smaller amount of money. Heard from you all that you want to be strategic about what the state is doing, looking to them, and then filling in the gaps of what the state is not doing. So that's the approach we're going to take with these funds available.
We wouldn't apply for it, but our providers would.
Right.
No, nonprofits are the only,
I misunderstood. All right, thank you very much.
yeah, absolutely. Nonprofits are the only eligible applicants for the housing grant in particular.
And when will they know that answer?
For the treatment and recovery grants, they will know in November. And then for the housing grants, it just says the end of 2024. It does not have a specific date listed yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Gabby.
Mm-hmm.
I can support moving forward with drafting a policy for our consideration.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That's me speaking.
All right, Kevin, you're up.
Well, good morning. Here today, just to give you a quick update on the construction that's going on at the airport. Most all of it is positive. Don't really have anything negative to say about it, but okay. Before I get started, and while we're bringing up the slides, want to say again, thank you for all your support. We wouldn't be moving forward if it weren't for the support from the county. So again, the lift emblem, that lift emblem is not specific to the terminal. It's anything that we do that provides a benefit to the passengers. At least when we get done, it provides a benefit. So this is just a quick overlay of, give you a perspective of the existing terminal, which is the red there, and where the entire new terminal will lie as compared to the existing terminal when we're completely done. Of course, we're focused right now on phase 1A, which are the two blue areas there. The terminal itself, and then the existing bag belt, inbound bag system will become the administration offices. Originally, there was supposed to be a third floor on that phase 1A for administration. It saved about $40 million to cut that floor, and so they're going to use that existing facility to move in for the admin offices. On the next slide, we've got just an overlay of all of the construction that's going on right now. The green area being the garage. It will be completed next year. It's a little bit behind schedule. We desperately need the garage available to park vehicles by spring break. Our recovery from the pandemic. Last year was greater than what we thought it was going to be. We thought we were in good shape. We won't have the revenue control systems in, and it won't be 100% done, but the contractor is telling us they will have it available for parking vehicles. The orange area there being the Phase 1A, and then the yellow, the existing concourses, and you see the short bridge in between the two so that we can use those concourses until we can afford to continue on with construction. At this point, we are 80% bid out on the first phase of this project. The only thing that's left to bid is the admin offices, and we are under the budget on those bids, and that's good news. So we started looking forward to see what we could do on the next slide. Can we do more than, with the existing money that we have, can we do more than what we had originally planned? And I'm going to show you some things here in just a minute that our board hasn't even seen. They will see it tomorrow morning for the first time in much more detail, of course, but again, it's all positive. But in the orange area there, you can see the blue area, which is the first phase, and then in the orange and red area, we divided the second phase into 3 different phases, anticipating that we may have to move forward more slowly than what we thought. And I don't think you can probably see it in it's very small in the red up there. But long story short, Phase 1B West, which is the orange area, there's quite a bit of savings if we continue construction today, but that's true of the red area as well. I don't know that we would be able to move into what's called 1B East, but potentially we may be able to get part of that done for the same monies that we were looking at in the first phase. And I'll explain that a little bit more in detail on the next slide. So right now, Phase 1A, that first phase, at 80% bid out, and our estimates are coming in very accurately. We're $20 million below budget right now, and that can be carried forward. And when we couple that with some federal funding that's available, at least at this point it's available. Historically, they have always come through. But there's about $16 million that has to go forward. In other words, we can't put it into the first phase because it's already under construction. It would have to be a new construction phase. Couple those two together, and that's $36 million of a $54 million build. That $54 million saves, if we continue, go right on into the construction. It saves $13 million of mobilization and things like walls that we would have built in 1A that were built to be torn down. So it just moving right on in saves $13 million. Assuming the board approves moving on into 1B West, it would be built concurrently with the first phase, and it would be available in 2027, right at the same time that the first phase was done. Now remember, in that first phase, it was 5 gates with a stinger, and a stinger is just a fancy word for a walkway off the hold room to get that 6th aircraft out there. What Phase 1B West would give us is a full gate for that 6th aircraft and another gate on top of that. So we would gain 2 more full gates for that $54 million. When we started looking at this, we reached out to staff here at the county to see if the loan would need an amendment to allow us to do that. In discussion with them, the answer was no. Not at this time. However, there will have to be amendment when the second round of bond letting happens next year anyway. And if it needed amended, that we could do it at that time. But right now, the general consensus was we didn't need amendment. But that's part of the reason that we wanted to schedule this meeting, just to let everybody know that we have looked at that according to the load documents. So with that, I've got some slides, some renderings that we can run through quick, but I'd take any questions on this that you might have before we move into the renderings.
Any questions?
Like I said, it's all positive. We're going to get more
That way.
more for the money than what we thought we were going to get. So the other part of that is we don't have to rebid. If we do 1B West, we don't have to rebid. The contractors, our construction management at risk joint venture, the Whites-Turner joint venture, has agreed to allow us to change order everything that's been bid so that we can just keep right on going with that construction. If we moved into 1B East, that will have to be rebid, but for those next two gates, there's no bidding, it's just change order. So we know the actual cost.
That's awesome.
So real quick, I'll run through these. That's the approach to the terminal on the first slide. On the second slide there, that as we come up, that green light is a system that will be installed. When the light turns green at that gate, you know that you're boarding, so that you'll be able to see that through the whole length of the concourse there. So if you're sitting in the restaurant or at the bar or someplace else, you can sit comfortably till that light turns green, and then you know you need to get your gate because they're starting to be boarding. On the next slide, we've got the coffee shop. This is post-screening, but this is the coffee area, which of course does a great business. It's larger and more inviting than the existing one that we have today, certainly, although the one that we have today or the main restaurant will adopt it, but we will have coffee out on the existing concourses too. On the next slide, we've got the restaurant and bar area. On the right there is the bar, and then as you go on down is some of the eating areas. Again, very visible. It's right across from the coffee shop, and right adjacent to that, there's a lounge area for people. If you need to have a quick meeting before you go, you can grab your coffee or a drink and sit down and do that. And it's just adjacent to this. And on, I think, the last slide, this is our quick serve area. There is a full-scale restaurant, but this is the quick serve area. Iowa Eats, and then a Mexican food area, two different areas. The Iowa Eats will focus on everything Iowa. I'm not sure they're going to do tenderloins, but they certainly they have talked about it. They're going to try. Anyway, all the product through that Iowa Eats will come from Iowa. And on the last slide there, actually depicts, this is the meet and greet area and the coffee shop on the land side or pre-screening area, and that is the actual seating that will go in there. We have that now. And it's,
Where is this at?
this is pre-screening. This is the meet and greet area where people will wait to meet.
Oh, yeah, got it.
Some of the other things that have gone on here is the artists have been selected. 5 artists have been selected to put art, working with the Greater Des Moines Public Art Foundation, and they generated $3.2 million. Because there's federal funding in this project, we had a requirement, the airport had a requirement to put in $850,000. We did, and they generated another 3.2 for just slightly over a $4 million budget. So very appreciative of their efforts, and the new art director has done a fantastic job both in process and in helping us select the art that will go in here. It's not finalized yet. The artists have been selected and the concepts have been selected, but of course it'll get narrowed down and maybe worked a little bit before it's final and ready for public. Again, thank you for your support, and if you've got any questions today or anytime, reach out.
I do have a question. Just want to understand the timing of the funds. So the $16 million in federal money that you're hopeful of acquiring, what source of funds are those, Kevin?
Two different sources. The one I'm most confident in is $6.5 million from what's called Airport Improvement Program discretionary funds, and that's already, we have to submit a 5-year plan to the FAA, and it's already kind of budgeted within that plan. So assuming funds get appropriated by Congress, we're pretty confident that will go ahead and come in. We have a competitive process through the bipartisan infrastructure law, which we've been fortunate each year thus far to acquire. There's $5 million is what we're getting, have gotten, at least on average every year for the last 3 years, and we're anticipating $5 million again coming from that fund. But again, that one I'm less confident in simply because it's competitive. You submit your application and you hope that you get the funding, but we've been successful thus far. And then the rest of it is AIG, Airport Improvement Grant funding, which again is on an equation. It's from the bipartisan infrastructure law, and it's a little more solid than the ATP funds.
Yeah, well, you know, the decision point that you'll have to make is obviously using the savings plus the discretionary, the hope of the discretionary money, but at what point do you say go or no go based upon your ability to pick up that 16?
And in preparation for that question tomorrow, what's the fallback plan? Our actual bonding is going to be less than what we anticipated. It's going to be less than the $350 million, and there is room, if we had to bond for the whole thing, if we absolutely had to. Now, we already know $20 million is available from the budget from 1A, but
Yeah.
But if we had to, we won't be over the $350 million if we have to bond to close the gap.
And you feel confident that you could service that debt
Yes. Yeah.
based on existing operations?
Yeah. I mean, some of the other good news is on the first round of bonding. In our modeling, everything's in there at 5% interest. Of course, first round of bonding, all in, came in we're at 4.3%, which is substantial on that sum of money. And we anticipate, looks like, interest rates will be going down and for the next round. So there's an additional savings there, but there's too much money available from the federal side to not go into that next phase, try to get those second two gates. And I'm confident that we can bond and make the payments because everything was programmed at $350 million worth of bonding, and it's still available to us.
Okay.
I did want the board to know that the Alzheimer's Association, plus me, I guess, I've been working with Kevin and his staff about to make the new airport a dementia-friendly airport, which is kind of a new thing in airports. Phoenix Sky Harbor is one already, but it's not very common yet. This new airport will be dementia-friendly, which means that there'll be a quiet room. Airports can be kind of overstimulating, particularly TSA and all that, but there'll be quiet rooms available and also some lanyards available to people who need extra assistance and those kinds of things, and training available to staff. So it's a great thing, and we appreciate your help, Kevin.
Oh, glad to do it. And we've actually implemented the program. We don't have the quiet room, but we've implemented the lanyards so that you recognize, and it's any hidden disability that a person might have. We've worked with TSA and have had meetings now with all of the airlines so that hopefully everybody will recognize those lanyards. And it just is a signal that this person needs some additional patience or some additional assistance as they're processing through the airport. Just don't have room in the existing airport for a quiet room to get them out of the.
No, thanks a lot for doing that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Before these guys, before we adjourn, I know, Steve, you mentioned you are okay with moving forward on a policy. Is everybody else, so that we have direction here for everybody? We didn't finalize that. You're good?
Definitely.
You good?
Definitely, yep,
Move forward.
yep.